It had been almost 6 years since I'd last seen Caleb. We met just once when our parents got married. I was 16, all awkward limbs and acne, and he was already 20. Quiet and withdrawn, home from college for the weekend. We shook hands in a stiff living room introduction, while our parents beamed like this was some new beginning. He wore a faded hoodie and barely made eye contact, said hey and nothing else. I didn't know what I expected, but it wasn't that. He felt like a stranger, more guest than family. And after the wedding, he vanished. Moved to the city, got a job, disappeared into adulthood like most people do. I didn't think much about him after that. It's maybe the occasional Instagram posts would pop up, a group photo, a tagged birthday party. We weren't close, not even in the half-hearted stepbrother way. He became one of those names you share in family holiday updates but don't actually know. So when my mom casually mentioned over breakfast that Caleb was stopping through town for a friend's wedding and would be staying the night, barely reacted. He'll just be here for a night, she said, sipping her coffee like it was nothing. He asked if it was cool to crash here instead of a hotel. I told him, of course. I try not to make it weird. Why would I make it weird? I asked. She gave me that look, the one parents use when they know more than they let on. I don't know. You barely spoke when you were kids. You weren't kids, I muttered. He was a grown man. I was 16. What were we supposed to bond over? What? She'd already moved on to her crossword. I didn't think much about it until that afternoon when the front door opened and Caleb walked in, and I swear for a second, I forgot how to breathe, because the person who stood there in my doorway was not the hoodie-wearing college ghost from my memory. He looked different, confident, taller than I remembered, though maybe it was how he carried himself now. Relaxed, casual, in control. His jeans were snug around muscular thighs, his t-shirt fitted and slightly wrinkled, like he'd driven hours in it. But it still stretched across broad shoulders in a way that made my mouth go dry. His arms were tan, his jawline sharp and defined. His voice, when he spoke, was deeper than I remembered, and threaded with amusement. "Damn," he said, giving me a once-over with a small grin. "You got taller, broader, too." "Not bad," I blinked. "You, too." He dropped his duffel bag right inside the door and looked around like nothing had changed. "Couch still sucks?" he asked. "Worse, probably." Nodded toward the hallway. "Then I'm stealing your room. Hope that's cool." I wanted to say no, or at least hesitate, but I didn't. Instead, found myself shrugging like it didn't matter. "Yeah," I said. "Sure, that's fine." But it wasn't fine, because I could already feel something in my chest tightening. It's a weird kind of nervous energy I didn't know what to do with. We made some small talk over dinner, the usual catch-up stuff. Yet. Talked about his job at a tech firm, the brutal hours, the city noise. I told him I was in school again, part-time, still figuring things out. He asked if I was seeing anyone. I said no. He didn't push. Afterward, he disappeared into the shower. I sat on the couch pretending to scroll through my phone, but really, I was replaying everything: his smile, the way he leaned back in the kitchen chair, how easily he'd slipped into the space like he'd never left. Eventually, I got up to brush my teeth. When I came back to the room, the lights were off, but the door was cracked just enough to let a sliver of hallway. Light cut across the floor and onto the bed, and that's when I saw him. Caleb was already lying down, shirtless, one arm slung across his face, blanket pushed low around his hips. His chest rose and fell slowly, smooth and bare, the kind of lean muscle definition that made it hard to look away. His skin caught the faint light just enough to show the curve of his shoulders, the lines of his stomach, the slight dip where his ribs met his waist. He was asleep, or looked like it, and he looked beautiful. I stood there frozen, toothbrush still damp in my hand. Something inside me twisted, tightened. I didn't know what I expected when he said he'd crash in my room, but it wasn't this. Wasn't him half covered in my blanket, sleeping like he belonged here. My heart thudded in my chest, a little too fast. I tiptoed in and slid onto the far edge of the bed, careful not to move the mattress too much. I lay on my side, facing the wall, trying to breathe evenly, trying to think of anything else. School, laundry, the dishes I forgot to put away, but none of it worked, because he was there, inches behind me, warm, real, quiet. And suddenly this wasn't just a stepbrother staying the night. It felt dangerous, magnetic, like something I wasn't ready for, but couldn't stop from happening anyway. Sleep didn't come easy. I lay on my side, stiff as a board, eyes fixed on the faint outline of my dresser in the dark. The blankets felt too warm, the pillow too soft. But mostly, it was Caleb, just behind me, steady in his breathing, a quiet, constant presence that made my thoughts spiral. I couldn't stop thinking about how he looked, the way the light had skimmed his chest, the easy way he took up space in my bed, like he'd always belonged there. My body was still, but my mind ran laps. Every shift he made sent a ripple through the mattress and through me. I tried to focus on the ceiling, on the soft hum of the fan, on anything but how close he was. But then, through the dark, I heard him speak. "You awake?" His voice was low, hoarse from sleep. I blinked. "Yeah," I whispered. A pause, then a quiet chuckle. "Didn't think you'd fall asleep that fast. You've been breathing like you're running a marathon." My face went hot. "Sorry, didn't know I was that obvious." "You weren't. I just know what fake sleep sounds like." I rolled onto my back, staring at the ceiling again.
Guess.
"I'm just wired." "Why?" "Because of me." I hesitated, then maybe. He shifted behind me, the creak of the mattress, the rustle of sheets. "Want to go outside? Get some air?" I nodded, even though he couldn't see me.
Ah!
"Sure." We padded quietly through the hallway and slipped out the front door. The porch light was off, so we moved through moonlight instead, a soft silver glow that lit the steps and cast long shadows across the yard. The air was cooler than I expected, crisp. It smelled like damp grass and pine, the scent of summer. About to turn, Caleb sat on the top step and leaned his elbows on his knees. I sat a few inches beside him, arms crossed, trying not to think too much about how familiar this felt, even though it doubled us. We sat in silence for a while. Not uncomfortable, just ... listening. To the night sounds. To each other, then he broke it. "You remember that backyard bonfire your mom threw after the wedding?" I smirked. "The one where Uncle Jeff set his pant leg on fire? That's the one." I laughed quietly. "Yeah, you vanished halfway through it." "I thought you went to bed," he shrugged. "I did, technically." I climbed out the window and walked 2 miles to the gas station for a soda and a minute to breathe. Seriously? I wasn't good at the whole blending into a new family thing, he said. Didn't know where to fit. You could have tried. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. You could have said something too. "You know," I blinked. "I was 16. You were this broody college guy who barely spoke to anyone." He smiled faintly. "I wasn't trying to be broody. I was just confused about everything, especially you. That caught me off guard." "Me?" He nodded slowly. "You were just a kid, but you were so at ease. You made people laugh. You were open, real. I envied it, I guess. Maybe I didn't know how to look at it without questioning myself. I didn't know what to say." The breeze shifted, and I rubbed my hands. "Together, you're different now," he added. I turned toward him. "So are you." "No," he said, looking straight ahead. "I mean, you're not who I remembered. You're quieter, but sharper, more grounded. It suits you." I swallowed hard. "Thanks." His voice stayed soft, low, like a confession. Back then I thought maybe if I left soon enough, I could skip over the part where I got attached. Did it work? He didn't answer right away. Then he smiled, tired but honest. "Not really." We sat there for another few minutes, not talking, just breathing in the night. The distance between us felt smaller than it had ever been, not because our knees brushed, not because we were finally opening up, but because something between us had settled, like a puzzle piece we didn't know was missing, had quietly clicked into place. Eventually, Caleb stood and stretched. "We should probably try again." Sleep, I mean. Right. We walked back inside, past dark walls and sleeping rooms, The house felt different somehow, calmer, quieter, like it had taken a breath. 2. When we got back to bed, we didn't speak. We just lay there. The air between us still charged, but no longer uncertain. And as I stared up at the ceiling, eyes heavy now, I thought about what he said. About memory and distance. And the version of myself he hadn't expected to find, it felt like something between us had quietly shifted. Neither of us dared name it. I woke up to warmth, the kind that doesn't come from blankets, but from someone breathing steady beside you, from skin radiating just enough heat to make you aware of every inch of space. You're not quite touching it. It took me a moment to remember where I was, or rather, who was with me. Caleb's still asleep. Still in my bed. His back was to me, but he'd rolled closer during the night. The gap that had been there when we returned from the porch was now barely a breath wide. His leg hovered near mine under the covers. His shoulder, bare and golden in the early light, rose and fell in a quiet rhythm. I didn't move. I just took it in, because this wasn't the awkward silence of sharing a bed with a stranger. It felt different. Intimate in a way that made my chest tighten. Not with panic, but with something quieter. Something like wonder. Eventually, he stirred. His arms stretched behind him, knuckles brushing against my side. He let out a groggy sound. "You always steal the whole blanket?" I blinked. I didn't touch it. He cracked one eye open and smirked, a voice still heavy with sleep. "Sure, you didn't." I rolled onto my back, the ceiling coming into view, and muttered, "Maybe if you weren't built like a space heater." He laughed just once, soft, and then buried his face in the pillow. "Whatever helps you sleep at night." The morning light crept through the curtains in quiet gold streaks. Dust floated through the beams, slow and silent. For a few seconds, neither of us moved again. The house was still asleep. It felt like we were the only two people awake in the world. Eventually, he sat up and stretched, muscles pulling tight beneath his skin. "I need coffee," he mumbled. I pushed the blanket back. Same, we padded to the kitchen barefoot. Found the mugs without asking. I started the French press. The air smelled like warm wood and old cinnamon. One of Mom's forgotten candles still burned faintly in the corner. We worked around each other in silence, but it wasn't tense. It was natural, easy. I passed him the sugar. He handed me a plate. We didn't bump into each other once. When I pulled the eggs from the fridge, I felt him lean close behind me, too close, reaching past to grab the pepper grinder from the cabinet just above my shoulder. His hand grazed my arm. A light touch. Barely there, but I didn't move. Neither did he. He stayed there a second longer than necessary, then stepped back like nothing had happened. Inside, my thoughts scattered, but outside, I was calm. Like I had rehearsed this quiet intimacy 1,000 times in a dream. We stood side by side at the stove, me cracking eggs, him buttering toast, and the silence between us felt full, not empty. Like we were both thinking about the same thing, but pretending not to. "You're quieter in the mornings," he said, leaning on the counter with his mug. I shrugged. "You're different in the mornings, too." "How so?" I hesitated, then smiled. Less broody, still a little smug. He smirked into his coffee. "You think I'm smug? Little bit?" He lifted a brow, mock offended. "I think I'm charming. You would think that." We both grinned, and it settled into something soft, something real. We ate at the table side by side, not across from each other like strangers. Our knees brushed once under the table. I didn't flinch. After breakfast, we didn't say much. He lingered over his coffee, tapping the rim of the mug. I leaned back in my chair, watching the steam curl up in the sunlight. It was the kind of morning I could live inside of forever. No rush, no noise. Just quiet company and something unspoken that buzzed in the space between our breaths. And yet, we didn't name it. We didn't talk about the nearness, the glances, the porch, the night. But it was there, thick in the air. Folded into the way we moved around each other like two puzzle pieces that had never quite fit anywhere else. Familiar, and maybe something more. The porch creaked beneath my feet as I stepped outside. It was late, well past 10, and the night air had cooled into something sharp and quiet. A breeze moved through the trees like a hush, the kind that carries memories in its folds. Caleb was already there, sitting alone on the wooden bench, legs stretched out, a half-empty glass of something dark resting near his ankle. An old photo album sat open in his lap. I recognized it by the peeling corner and the faded spine. My mom's wedding album. The one she only brought out during holidays or nostalgia-heavy moods. He didn't look up when I came out, just turned a page, his fingers grazing the glossy photo like it might answer something. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked gently. He shook his head, didn't try. I hesitated, then sat beside him. Close, but not too close. The porch light flickered above us, old wiring, casting a dim golden glow across his face. It softened him somehow, made him look younger, more like the Caleb I might have known. If time had gone differently, he turned the album toward me, tapped the corner of a photo. "That's you, right? In the backyard? With the sparkler?" I nodded. 16 braces just off. Thought I looked so cool. "You did?" He paused. "You still do?" My chest tightened. Not because of the compliment, but because of how quietly he said it. Like it had been sitting in his throat for years, waiting for space. I looked at him. Really looked. He was staring at the photo, but his expression was miles away. "I always wondered why you left so fast after the wedding," I said. "You didn't say goodbye? You just disappeared." He didn't respond right away. Then he closed. The album slowly, like the sound of it closing, deserved its own space in the moment. "I panicked," he said. I blinked, panicked. He leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. His voice was low. "Came back for that weekend, thinking I'd just get through it, be polite, smile in pictures. But then I met you," and he stopped himself. "And I asked." He exhaled, steady and slow. "You were this bright thing, confident, funny, sharp. I thought I was prepared for a new stepbrother, but I wasn't." "Prepared for you?" I didn't move. He continued. "At first I told myself it was admiration or nostalgia. But by the second night, I caught myself looking at you for too long, noticing things I shouldn't have noticed. The way you laughed, the way you walked barefoot around the house, the way you looked at people like you saw through them." His fingers fidgeted with the corner of the album. "And then I realized I didn't want to just be your brother. And I hated myself for it." I looked down. The floorboards blurred a little. My pulse thudded loud in my ears. "Thought maybe if I left early, I could kill it before it grew into something I couldn't control," he said. "So I packed, mumbled some excuse, and vanished." My voice came out softer than I intended. "You didn't have to be scared of me. I wasn't scared of you," he said, turning toward me. The silence after, that was heavy, not awkward, just ... full. I stared at my hands in my lap, thumbs pressing against each other. I always thought I imagined it. Imagined what? The tension. The way you looked at me sometimes. The way it felt like something. Wanted to start, and then didn't. Caleb's shoulders dropped. Like hearing that, let him exhale something he'd been holding inside for too long. "You didn't imagine it," he said. I looked up. Our eyes met. His gaze was steady, raw, like nothing was between us anymore. Not years, not family, not fear. And then quietly, Caleb reached over. Not fast. Not dramatic, just extended his hand toward mine. I didn't hesitate. Our fingers laced slowly, deliberately. His hand was warm, rough in the places where mine were smooth. The contact sent a pulse through my spine, a stillness that landed right. In the center of my chest, we didn't speak, didn't need to. We just sat there, our hands linked in the dark. The photo album forgotten between us. The wind nudging leaves across the porch like a soundtrack to something we couldn't name yet. Don't know how long we stayed like that. Long enough for the porch light to flicker again. Long enough for my thumb to start tracing slow, careful circles over his knuckle. Long enough for him to lean a little closer, not quite touching my shoulder, but closer than before. And maybe, That was the whole point. We didn't kiss. We didn't rush anything. But something passed between us in that moment. Something old and unspoken, now finally acknowledged. Not labeled. Not forced. Just ... real. He didn't need to say he was. Sorry he was here. That was enough. The next day bloomed slowly, the kind of warm, drowsy summer day where the sun never gets. Too hot, the breeze smells like pine, and time seems to stretch between breaths. Caleb was already up when I wandered into the kitchen, barefoot and bleary-eyed. He was leaning against the counter, sipping coffee from the chipped red mug my mom never throws out. When he saw me, he gave a lazy half-smile, the kind that felt like it belonged just to me. "Sleep okay?" he asked. I nodded, yawning. "Surprisingly, want to get out of the house for a bit?" I blinked. "Where?" He shrugged. "Woods? Out back? Walk? Talk? Maybe dodge a few deer?" So we went. The trees behind the house hadn't changed much since I was a kid, still tangled and overgrown in places with uneven dirt paths and fallen logs that made you earn your footing. But walking beside Caleb, it didn't feel like returning to childhood. It felt like discovering something new inside something old. We didn't talk much at first, just walked in sync, feet crunching leaves, the sun slanting in patches across our shoulders. The silence was easy, familiar then. Somewhere near the old stream that cut through the trees, Caleb broke it. "You ever think about leaving this place?" he asked. "All the time? What stops you?" I looked at him. He wasn't teasing. "Just curious. Fear, I guess," I said. "Or comfort. They blend after a while." He nodded, thoughtful. "I used to think if I moved far enough away I'd figure everything out. Turns out all I did was get better at pretending I had." I didn't know what to say to that, not right away. We kept walking. Our shoulders brushed once. Neither of us stepped away. At some point, we circled back to the yard and sat on the back steps. The sun hit us both in long, warm lines. Caleb rested his arms on his knees, squinting up at the sky. "You think people get second chances?" I asked. "What? Being who they were supposed to be the first time?" I let that sit for a moment. "Then, yeah. I think the first version of ourselves is just a sketch." He smiled, quiet and sincere. I like that. Back inside, we slipped into a rhythm, doing things that didn't need to be done just to fill the hours. He helped me screw a loose hinge back onto a cabinet door. I handed him tools while he crouched shirtless on the tile floor, forehead glinting with sweat. He complained about the screws. I teased him about his form. We laughed. At one point I handed him the screwdriver, and our fingers touched, brief but not meaningless. Later, we cleaned out the hallway closet. He found one of my old flannels and slipped it on with exaggerated confidence. "Fits like a glove," said, modeling. "You look like you steal band posters from high schoolers," he grinned. "So you do remember how to flirt." I rolled, my eyes smiling too hard to stop it. We ate leftovers for dinner and watched a movie on the living room floor. Nothing romantic. Just noise in the background as we lounged on mismatched cushions and a half-enfolded blanket. I was barely paying attention to the screen. My focus kept drifting to the way his foot tapped against the floor, to the small scar on his knuckle, to the way he occasionally looked at me when he thought I wasn't noticing at one point. I laughed at something in the movie, a dumb line, badly delivered, and Caleb turned toward me. He reached over casually, like it was nothing, and brushed something off my cheek. A crumb, maybe, or nothing at all. But his fingers lingered just a beat longer than necessary, and when I turned my head to look at him, his eyes were already waiting. Neither of us spoke. That small space between our bodies felt alive, heavy with things unsaid. He dropped his hand, but not his gaze. "This is the most myself I've felt in a long time," he said. The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. I took a breath, felt something shift in my chest, something steady and certain. "Then stay," I said. His eyes flickered. "You sure?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'm sure." He didn't answer right away, but he smiled, real and slow, and leaned back beside me on the floor. Our arms just barely touching, and for the first time since he walked through the front door. I didn't feel like I was waiting for something to happen, because something already had. His bag was by the door, zipped, packed, waiting. That detail alone made everything in the house feel heavier, like the walls knew he was leaving. The floor creaked louder underfoot, like the quiet wasn't just silence anymore, but absence ahead of time. Caleb hadn't said when exactly he was heading out the next morning, just that the wedding was a bit of a drive and he didn't want to be late. His tone was casual, but everything else wasn't. Dinner was quiet. Not strained, just delicate, like neither of us wanted to poke the bubble we'd been living in. Afterward, we drifted into the living room. No TV, no distractions, it's just us, the soft lamp on the side table, and a half-empty bag of chips between. Us that neither of us touched. "I forgot how loud this house gets at night," Caleb murmured, breaking the silence. "The floorboards, the pipes, your mom's music box in the hall. That thing still creeps me out," I smiled faintly. "It goes off randomly. Been doing it for years." He nodded, leaning back into the couch. "I used to think maybe the house was alive, like it was trying to tell me something." I looked at him and now shrugged, eyes on the ceiling. "Now I think maybe I just didn't know how to listen." Pause. "Then I've been thinking a lot about missed chances lately. Versions of life that never happened." His voice was soft, careful. "You mean like regrets?" "Not regrets." "Exactly," he said. "More like shadows. Paths I saw but didn't walk." I rested my arm along the back of the couch. "That sounds dangerously poetic." He smirked. "Don't get used to it." We sat in the hush again, the kind that stretches, not breaks. Like time itself was moving slower in that room. Then, after a long while, he said it. "It's always been you." The words dropped like stones in water. I turned to look at him. Wasn't looking at me, just down at his hands, thumbs pressed together like he was holding them still on purpose, even when I tried to forget. He continued, barely above a whisper. "Even when I left, even when I dated other people. I'd go months not thinking about you, or I thought I wasn't, but then someone would laugh like you, or wear your cologne, or have your damn posture, and suddenly I was 16 again. Staring across a backyard, wondering why I couldn't breathe right." I swallowed, hard. He finally looked at me, and I could feel the air change, slow, charged, like the room itself was holding its breath. We didn't move, but our faces were inches apart, our knees already touching, and in that small, impossibly close space, I felt everything. Every word we hadn't said, every glance that had lasted a beat too long, every time we'd both turned away from something that had been waiting patiently to be real. My heart pounded, my fingers twitched. He leaned in just a fraction, enough that I could feel the heat of him, enough to make my breath hitch. But neither of us closed the gap, because the moment was enough. Because sometimes the tension is the truth. He leaned back slowly, exhaling like the act itself had taken something from him, and I didn't chase the space he left behind. Instead, I reached out gently and laid my hand on the couch beside his. He turned his palm upward. Our fingers met, interlaced, not tight, not urgent, just steady, present. We didn't speak after that, didn't need to. He leaned against the back cushion, his eyes soft, expression unreadable, but not closed off. I settled beside him, shoulders nearly touching, our hands still linked between us like a quiet agreement. Eventually, his breathing slowed. The lamp cast long shadows across the rug. Somewhere down the hallway, the old music box clicked again, playing its crooked lullaby. But I didn't flinch, because this felt like peace. Not the loud kind. It's not the dramatic kind. The quiet kind. You don't know you've been missing until it wraps around you like a blanket you forgot you owned. We didn't say goodnight. We just stayed close. Like that might hold time still. The morning came too soon. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, pale and still. The kind that creeps in gently, like it knows it's interrupting something it shouldn't. I opened my eyes to an empty couch. The indent where Caleb had slept was still warm, the blanket folded at one corner. The air smelled faintly of his cologne. Clean, woodsy, a scent that had already started to mean something. I found him in the kitchen, fully dressed, keys hooked on his finger, mug in hand. He gave me a small smile when he saw me, not sad, not cheerful, just soft. Didn't. "Want to wake you?" he said. "You didn't?" We didn't talk about the night before, not out loud. But it was in the way we moved around each other, slower, more careful, like we didn't want to bruise something invisible that had just begun to grow. Mom was already up. Bustling around the hallway with last-minute mom energy, she handed Caleb a wrapped container of cookies for the road, gave him a hug a second too long, and disappeared into her room to find a brochure she'd misplaced 2 years ago. Caleb and I stepped out onto the porch. The sun was rising behind. The trees casting long golden streaks across the yard. Dew clung to the grass. The birds were louder than usual, or maybe it just felt that way because everything else was so quiet. His duffel was already in the bed of the truck. We stood beside it, not speaking, not moving. It was strange how hard it was to start a goodbye, when so much had already been said without words. He rocked on his heels, hands deep in his jacket pockets. "I should get going." I nodded, but my voice caught. I swallowed and tried again. "I'll come visit." He looked up at me, eyes meeting mine without hesitation. "You better." It wasn't a joke. It wasn't casual. It was a promise. We stood there a second longer, both of us still. Like the moment might break if we moved. Then slowly stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. It wasn't a quick hug. Not the kind you give to say thanks for the hospitality. It was full body, anchoring. The kind you give when words won't do. One of his hands pressed lightly between my shoulder blades. The other curled into the back of my shirt. I closed my eyes and leaned in, let myself feel it. Let myself return the embrace fully. His breath brushed against my neck. Warm, familiar. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. When he finally pulled back, his hand lingered on my arm, then dropped. We didn't smile. We didn't make jokes. To lighten it, we just looked at each other like there was something already written between us, and all we had to do now was live it. He opened the truck door, got in, turned the key. The engine started, low and steady. He rolled the window down and rested one elbow against the frame. "I'll text when I get there." I nodded. "Drive safe." He paused, then added, quieter, "Thank you for what? For not making me run from this again." I didn't respond. I couldn't. He gave me one last look, something in his eyes like a held breath, then shifted the truck into gear and pulled slowly down the gravel driveway. I watched him go. The sound of tires crunching over stone faded until all that was left was wind and birdsong and the faint creak of the porch behind me. I stood there for a long time, hand still warm from the hug, chest still heavy with all the things I didn't need to say anymore, because this wasn't the end, just the first breath of something we'd both spent years holding in.